do we have out in the audience? How many blues do we have out in the audience? Damn! How many mercenaries do we have out in the audience? Hell yeah, my people. Welcome! Oh my goodness, welcome to the RTX 2019 Red versus Blue panel! The panel that every year grows by more and more people. We have a lot of folks up here. We're gonna go down the line. I'm Miles Luna. I was a writer and director on the show for a couple seasons. I voiced Felix, and I'm gonna be helping kind of moderate this guy today. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your woos.
I'm Jason Waite. I was the lead writer for season 17.
I love you, Jason!
I'm Josh Millis. I'm one of your directors for season 17. I'm Austin Clark. I'm the other director for RV 17. I'm Greg Stegel. I was the producer on season 16 and 17.
I'm Gus Cirola. Fuck you all.
I'm Bernie Burns. And my character is dead. I'm wondering why I'm here.
Well, then you're in the right place. We have because Greg is such a wonderful producer, and I think this is the first time in the history of an RVB panel where we have a freaking list of stuff, you guys. We're organized up in this bitch.
We do.
So we have a few things we're going to talk about. Got some questions on our end. We also want to be sure that we get some questions for you guys. Bernie, we thought we'd do something kind of cool to handle the questions this year.
Yes, so instead of a normal get up and Q&A, we want to have it peppered throughout the entire panel. So if you have any questions for our esteemed panelists up here, please just tweet anywhere using the hashtag RTXRVB. That's RTXRVB.
I feel like we're doing a podcast.
How do you spell that?
Your compliance is appreciated. And I'll be looking at them here and be throwing out questions to everybody else in the panel. So that I have something to do.
I want to start with a question. So we've got some faces up here, not necessarily new faces, but familiar faces in new positions. Jason, you and Joe worked together on RVB season 16, and as we move into season 17, the reins are sort of handed to you, and to kind of finish this time travel trilogy off. Don't try saying that 3 times fast. What was that like for you, man?
It was super intense. I'd only learned how to read for season 16, so to be handed the reins to season 17 so fresh after becoming literate was a real... it was interesting, but it was lovely because I'd come really close with certain characters during season 16, and now it's just now I'm going to treat you how I want to treat you.
What is an example of that?
Donut, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I just really wanted to spoil him, put him in my front pocket, and show him the world.
That was how I felt about Tucker in the Chorus trilogy. Of you as you start writing for these characters, I don't know what it is, but one of the support cast is something I really love you. Let's give you some fun adventures to go on.
Yeah, there's so much to him, Donut. I think it's in season 5 where they're in. I think Sister's getting changed. No one on Red Team is allowed to look at her naked. But Donut, and Simon's why does Donut get to look? And Donut's man, this cave gets so much natural light. That's what it is. It's such a rich inner life. Cheese and wine hour. Fucking all about it.
I remember when we were working on the treatment for season 17, because we went through a few different iterations, and I know early on there was actually there was some worry of can Donut be a leading man? And the answer I think was hell yeah, he can. It was super exciting. So Josh and Austin, you guys have been with us doing Machinima for a while now. This was one of the first times where we put you full on in director position. Y'all worked with some of the different actors and actresses before, but what was it like officially being the co-directors of season 17?
Scary.
Same.
You have a lot of power to shape the the show exactly how you want it, but like I think having your direction as far as like writing helped out a lot.
I concur. Give him a hand, everybody. I've never been on a panel before. This is terrifying. I just wanted to know. Yeah, no, it was also terrifying coming into a role of, you know, I started as a machinima assistant 3 years ago, and then machinima and the director. To be given too much power was too much.
It's like Infinity Gauntlet shit.
Yeah, that came out really well. Yeah.
So it's also, typically with RVB, the writer and the director tend to be the same person, but like this was one of the times where obviously that wasn't the case. Were there like any growing pains or like any like pleasant surprises that you found working with one another? Like what was that like? Because it was definitely new for the team as a whole.
Well, I remember I messaged Josh and was just like, hey, this is the exact way I want this thing to be done, if that's cool. It was like, oh, we did that ages ago. You'll just have to wait till everyone else sees it, like any other person, like, oh, okay. But watching the episodes as they came out, I was always just, it was so pleasant to see how certain shots came out, you know, because they would run with them. Like there's the one where Wash and Carolina have their goodbye towards the end of the season. And in this shot of Wash, you know, he's like, you know, my life, you know, it's a small price to pay for the universe, right? And then there's the mountain behind him and the sun setting behind the mountain, all the stakes of him not doing the thing, potentially, are in the shot with him. And he's about to save all the little people, and all he wants to do is say goodbye to his friend before he does it. And you just, well, you know, I've messaged you. Yeah, pleasant. Everything has been absolutely wonderful about it.
I remember early on, we realized it would probably be a good idea. Our company uses Slack for like messaging and communication and stuff. And like pretty much immediately we realized, oh, we have to make a Slack group that's Machinima and Jason so they can like communicate together. Because there was a lot of also like learning the language of not just Machinima, but Halo and Halo's engine as well. Just like, okay, what are certain things that you can and can't do in Machinima? Or, you know, like you have to figure out like the weird like quirks that may not be immediately noticeable just by looking at game footage. Like when we started doing RVB 11, we were like, oh yeah, no, our like Halo 4 looks really dope. They've added all these new things. This is really cool. Why do they keep raising their gun when we move? Is that just like a one-time bug? Oh, it's here forever? Cool. Like learning all these little things that you're gonna have to deal with. Like, was there one that like really threw you for a loop that you weren't prepared for, or like?
Oh, sometimes I'd like to have a character sit or lay down, and that, you know, you just no, you can't do that.
You can collapse.
Oh, absolutely, you can die. It's just like those are the two modes: standing up or dying.
It was fun reading through it and being like, as a producer, looking like, okay, firefight, truck explodes, like bombs going off, like yeah, whatever. Wait, character sits down. Whoa there.
We're not made of money, Jason.
There are certain verbs that we could just never use in Machinima for that portion of RVB, and basically we were limited to, and they still are, to any verb that can be translated to a button on the controller. So we can move, we can crouch. Crouching is a huge part of RVB. But even something simple as like, if you say sit, for years I was like, I just want them to be able to point at something. That would like communicate so much information. It's like, look at that, as opposed to, look over there on the cliff, like you have to say everything that you want to do. I got a question here, Miles, from the audience. Where's Big Pete?
Where's what?
Hey, there's Big Pete, Metal Viking. He wants to know, along the lines of what we're talking about here, what's been the hardest thing about keeping the stories together after picking up from other storylines? And what you guys think about that, I do want to say the reason I like this question is, I think we just went through this with Game of Thrones. One thing I've always liked about RVB from a writing perspective is that we've always had places where the story ends. Like if you get to a point you're happy with where the characters are, like season 5, season 8, season 10, season 13. It's like we give people a jumping off point. It also helps, I think, people to have a jumping on point, but I also think it's an honest way to tell stories. But there's a lot of back catalog of narrative to deal with when you guys pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you follow the trajectory of the season before you. well, I had to, at least. And so I suppose there's a lot of, you can see whether somebody else is going with the character, but in your own season to wrap up an arc, like for me, for example, I couldn't really make too many new characters because we already had such a rich cast, and it was about tying up things and having all of the loose threads eventually twine together in some satisfying way, which is down to you whether actually that's the case. But yeah, God, how was it?
I remember early on, because you, myself, and Joe spent a good amount of time just trying to really see what we could do. Because I know, we had a slightly slimmer budget to work with this season, and so we were like, we can't lean quite as hard on visual spectacle via animation, and that actually, much to our fear, led to okay, I think, because we had the idea, but then we were like, yeah, this is this has to be it, of we go back to using multiple Halo games again, because that's something that will be visually striking once you jump into from Halo 2 to Halo 4. It's oh, okay. And it's really interesting. But we also remember that season 14 was a lot with a little TM next to it. This will feed into another question I want to ask about what it was like going back to that. But I remember there were so many moments of us having to I just remember a singular moment where you, me, and Joe were in a room with a whiteboard. It was like that scene from It's Always Sunny, the Pepe Sylvia scene, where we were talking about different timelines and characters, and oh, this character was here during this time. If you saw Avengers Endgame, and there's that moment where everybody's trying to figure out where in time all the stones are, that's, I guarantee you, just what their writer's room looked like. It was literally a flashback of, okay, well, Donut was here during that, but, okay, no, Tucker was in Sandtrap, and then, all right, no, let's just figure this out. But the moment I will never, ever, ever forget was when you and Joe were arguing over something. You were like, no, because of this, it has to be this way. And Joe was like, no, because of this, it has to be this way. And I went, guys, we're literally talking about a paradox. You're both right and you're both fucking wrong, so we can just pick one. It was I never want to do a time travel story again. It was so fun. It was very fun. I wanted to throw myself into traffic on a regular basis.
So the term
It was so stressful.
There were squiggles all over the office. You see a whiteboard and be a random squiggle thing. It's oh, somebody was doing things. It's no, we were trying to explain timeline stuff. Oh, they get here and then they go to here and then they go back to there.
I think there's one point where you came in, you're what are you guys working on? And without anyone looking at it, Schrodinger's asshole. It's what? It's don't worry about it, we're figuring it out. The Everwind.
So we learned fairly quickly that you needed to label parts of the timeline, otherwise you couldn't efficiently refer to them. It's okay, so Donut gets to this time, but it's before this person's gotten here. Of course it's in the past, but currently, really, it's in the present. No, that's the Everwind. We're just calling it the Everwind now. And then it was Schrodinger's asshole was the period that Wash inhabited, where things both did and didn't happen.
Which we have to track.
So officially,
oh, this isn't Schrodinger's asshole. We're being very professional here. Can you stop laughing?
It was a nightmare, but also the craziest series of problem solving.
So I remember when you were writing your episode with the freelancers, and you were saying something to me about and you just can't work out what she would have been doing during this time. And I was like, why wouldn't he just go to the future where they're friends and ask her there? And you were like, God damn it!
Yeah, that moment where Wash just goes to ask Carolina, that was just me. That was just me in my conversation with Jason of I'm really excited to have Washington back interacting with all the freelancers and the triplets and yeah. I guess he could have just gone to ask her though. Oh, fuck me, I guess. Thank God this is a comedy.
Well, that would happen with writing being done separately. We'd write something great, it'd be awesome, I'd carry the script over to the directors, and Josh would be like, oh yeah, what about this thing in this season that is canon? Oh no.
Locust was killing a bunch of people, and then they were like, Jason, no, you can't do that. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, how do we undo that?
I walked into the room and Josh was like, but he's a pacifist at that point. Oh no.
Have him blow off kneecaps. He's doing the Batman rule. Just if you don't see him die on screen, they're probably alive. So yeah, it was, trying to tie together all these different storylines as well as throwing time travel paradoxes into the mix. It made it absolutely insane, and it was really, really difficult. But then, yeah, that also translated to a ton of crazy requests for the production team. Like, what was it like having to go, what, out of all the stuff that you shot this season, like, what was some of the hardest, what was the trickiest? Like, were there any games that just made it a real bitch and a half to try and get some stuff?
Something about in episode 9, when we go back to the season 11 fight in Halo 4, I had somehow, with like how the episodes were split, I had never machinimated in Halo 4 period.
Oh shit.
Thrown into that remake.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It probably, one day I literally got 3 shots in about 8 hours worth of work, but I think it was all worth it. I think it turned out to be fun.
That was, I mean, like, that episode of season 11, episode 18, I think when Kyle and I were working on that, I spent 3 weeks just making different iterations of that set, because over the course of that episode, there's like a battle going on in our main location for that season, and over the course of the battle, like, things need to be destroyed, or things need to be moved, or different characters need to be there, and it took 3 weeks just making like 8 different versions of that set. And then I remember while writing that, like, we were like, oh dude, Tucker needs to go back to like one of the worst days of his life when everybody lost, and he felt like it was kind of his fault, and we need to make it his fault. And as I was writing it, I remember just being like, Josh, Austin, please forgive me. I'm so sorry, but we have to go back. I was like, Jack, we gotta go back.
We had to write mental health days into the script, so they would take them off mid-production.
Well, fortunately, we had, like, Greg, you did a, like, I feel like producers don't get enough credit because y'all have, like, the not fun job of coming in and being like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? But it's always for the betterment of the team and making sure we stay on schedule and stuff. And so you actually did a really brilliant job of, like, breaking down when certain things would be shot and at what time to, like, allow for, like, hey, I know this is gonna be some really high stress episodes for a while. Now let's maybe just do some 2-head dialogue scenes for a little bit. And
I remember I came in and I was like, hey, Miles, so I went over the schedule and I adjusted it for holidays. And you just gave this look of like, oh,
right.
thank you. Yeah.
Now, it was, fortunately, like, working, like, with everybody up here, there was a lot of back and forth of like, here's best case scenario. And Paul would be like, okay, we can't do that. It's like, okay, back to the drawing board.
Oh, man.
There was a lot of that, but it was all, I mean, it was all super necessary, and it ended up with like something that worked, and yeah, it was still a good time.
There was a whole other treatment. There was a season you didn't see.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The first one with the iceberg.
Yeah, so I didn't want to bring that up too immediately. But we were like, Jason. We have, here's the budget we have to work with. Here's the time that we have to do it in. Here's what we're thinking. Let's figure it out. Like, yeah. Jason, wait, what's up? And he wrote something that was super cool and super impossible.
It would cost 3 times the budget. It didn't make a lot of sense all the time. I mean, you saw the better season. Don't worry about it. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. I spent months on that thing, and then we had to do it from scratch. But then the thing is, it turned out so good in the end. You know, fucking pass on some back. But yeah, you can't really complain about that.
There were parts where you would write something too and be like, I don't know if we can pull this off. And that's where that communication really came in. Because then I'd walk over to Josh Ross and be like, hey guys, Jason wants to do this.
Can you make a black hole in machinima? Turns out you can, actually. Good job, 3 for 3.
But what they would do is they'd look at it and they'd have that bit of separation, not being the writer, and looking at it with like fresh eyes and be like, we know a way.
Oh yeah, it was a game changer when I found out the plasma pistol could make a black hole. Because then we could put it into a scene suddenly. It was just like, oh, that was impossible before. Thank you, Halo.
Do we have any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, Doc's actually asked a question. Doc's where you at?
Oh,
you in costume while you're here?
She's somewhere. What up?
Wait, is the Felix one?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So she wanted to know for Jason Miles, if Locust had to follow the alien sword quest, does that mean he had to have an alien baby?
So, and y'all are OG, so you can chime in on this. I always just read it as Crunchbite is a freak nasty liar that took advantage of a poor human in space. That's how I always read that situation, which is why I was totally fine that Crunchbite got blown to fucking smithereens. I don't know, I
don't know if Tucker can be taken advantage of. I
don't know. I think I'd like to see an offspring of Locust from the
God.
alien world.
We have the poster at the very end when they're in the hospital that's describing alien pregnancy stuff. So it can't be that rare.
Yeah. There's a lot of sci-fi based on being impregnated by aliens. We're in line with that, I think. The question is, would Locust be a good dad? That's the bigger question. Father. I'm going to say father, actually. I'm going to extract the word daddy from that, please. Would Locust be a good father? I think maybe. I don't know. The man needs therapy, but anyways. Thank you, Docs.
He's already a daddy. Of course, there was a mercenary-based question from you.
Let's talk about other things.
I want to talk about Krovos.
Good.
Krovos, Lieti, Lady Krovos. Where did, because Krovos obviously went through a bit of a change between how we saw them in 16 and then 17. Like, what was the idea behind that? And, yeah, where did Lady Krovos come from?
Well, when I saw Kalirama at the beginning of season 16, I thought, oh, cool, a female villain. And then the next episode, there wasn't so much and so on. You know, she ended up being a large character. And I thought, well, yeah, that could be fun, couldn't it? Lady villain. Yeah, I saw Lieti. She was on stage with you at Camp at the panel last year here. And just, immediately I was like, God, she's such a good actress. I'd love to put her in something if I end up having an opportunity. But then I did, so I recommended. I think, what was the ad? It was like a predatory sort of Glenn Close type character with this sort of practiced superficial kindness to her lessers, crossed with, Maria from The Sound of Music, and how light and, personable she is, but underneath it, it's super dark, and she nailed that completely. God, she's such a good actress.
Yeah, we went through several different takes with the voice for her character too, because there was a bunch of different there was different ideas of what exactly. Whenever you have a character that needs to exposit a lot of information, it is a great idea to make sure you just love listening to that character talk. Like when we did Ruby Volume 1, originally Ooblik was this Ben Stein super boring guy that had to dump a lot of plot info. Hey, that sucks. And so instead we made him an overcaffeinated, hyperactive genius, and then that worked. And I think there was a lot of toying around that had to get done in the booth too, just finding Krovos' voice. What was that like?
Well, we eventually had to get Jason on a Skype call while we were talking to Lee across the booth, and we went through a number of okay, sound like this. No, maybe a little bit more like this, ooh, like that. And then eventually we just have all sorts of different things that we have to cross-breed into the perfect voice for Krovos.
Oh yeah, she was wonderful. And there was so much British slang that had to be cut, because
There's still a genuine thing. British slang pass every day.
Yeah, because they were yeah, we really love this line, we just don't know what it means.
Come in and be like, is this a typo or a British thing?
Okay, let us does. Being able to work in the booth with her, because she's so professional and so smart with it, and then she'll shoo you out of her performance if you're giving her too much notes, she'll just be okay, so it's kind of like this, shut up. And she'll, do it. There was a bit when Genkins had just taken the time gun out of play in Krovos' prison, and she's like, okay, what's my motivation here when I'm speaking to Genkins after this, And it's it's you've just come off stage after a difficult performance and the audience hasn't been behaving too well, and you're just sort of talking to a co-star, and then she's so good, she just nailed that exact sound, So it makes you feel stupid when you're directing, because if you just knew the right thing to say to them, they'd always deliver it right the first time.
Do we have another audience question?
There's a lot of questions about where RVB is going next, which obviously you don't want to hear that on a panel. Hopefully you'd rather see that. But the question about the future, which I think is an interesting one since we're just so tied to the Halo franchise, how's everybody feeling about Halo Infinite, and how do you think it's going to impact RVB?
Oh man.
I can tell you from experience of changing things. We went through 3 or 4 during the first 10 seasons, and jumping into Halo 2 was something we were really excited about because we didn't have the opportunity to work with the first Halo early, for obvious reasons. And I think we jumped into Halo 2 a little bit too quickly, and I wish we did spend more time like we did with Halo 3. We learned our lessons there. We finished out Season 5 in Halo 2, and then went 9 months before we did Reconstruction, and did that, launched that new storyline, new tone, also with a new engine, so it helped. So
would you map out the season based on what vehicles and settings were available, or was it that you would look to the game after you'd already had some ideas and see what vaguely fit with that?
I just write as many icebergs as I can, and then hope the game listen. It's one of those things where I think for me always when I was doing writing is for inspiration, I would just load the game up and wander around by myself through Blood Gulch and just look at stuff, because we were limited to whatever was in Blood Gulch, we had a skull, we had a car, how do we make these things funny? Which is fun, because the limitations can be a fun creative exercise. So I was like, but there's also mechanics of it. Halo 2 specifically, when we went into it, we had learned so much about the Halo engine just by working with it for so long that when we got to Halo 2, we could lower the gun because they added that feature in there, but there was things like what was the right weapon to use to have the right reticle on screen, which now that we have theater mode, we don't worry about, but little stuff like that we learned as we went along, and if we just spent 3 or 4 months working with it as opposed to doing it a week before the game came out and we felt like compelled to make this episode, this big shift, I wish we'd just taken that time, and I'm glad we have since then.
You guys used, for Halo 2, y'all used the Sentinel beam as the camera, right?
For the first episodes, yeah.
It's weird that, I remember being like, oh, the reticle changed. That was, something noteworthy that my, child brain did.
This weird artifact that's in the middle of the screen and is now a big square, right?
Yeah.
And then, I think, 4 or 5 episodes in, we learned that, you could have a plasma pistol and pick up a skull and drop all your weapons, and it gave us kind of a clean real estate with which to shoot the show. And I would have loved if we would have had that from the get-go. Plus, then there's story stuff too. You're trying to figure out how to make everything work, and you don't want to lock yourself into a rush to get it done. But I'm with Halo Infinite, we're as excited as everybody else for that to come out and take a look at it. But we have another layer where we get to go and play around and see what we can do in that world.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, I'm super excited about the new armor, because the new armor looks like the old armor. And I think cosplayers are probably pretty excited about that as well. Halo's always looked good, but from a design of just the armor standpoint, it started to get to this level where there's just hey, this is a shoulder pad, and this is 57,000 wires, and then this is a lower shoulder pad. There was a lot. They threw a lot of stuff in there, and it from a cosplay perspective, got really, really challenging. And I've just always loved the more clean, simplistic look, and I don't know. I'm excited, but I've always I grew up with Halo, and so I always want Halo to be good, and hopefully we'll be able to do cool stuff with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we do a time travel season or two, suddenly all this retro stuff's back,
Oh, so
what did I do?
Yeah, it was.
I'm not taking credit for it.
What did I just say about not wanting to do time travel, Greg? It's you're not listening to me. No, we don't have to go back again. We already went back.
We're still going back, Miles.
If you guys could choose any Halo game, you're this is just Red vs. Blue, this is what it shot in now. Any previous Halo game, which one would you choose?
3. I agree. 3.
Damn, everybody was shitmates in here. 3? Not Reach. Reach had some interesting ones. Reach had the bump real bad in Reach.
Yeah, with the bump being the vehicle would reset itself every 12 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, there was this whole thing where Halo 3 did it a little bit too, but it was nowhere near as noticeable as it was in Reach, which was, every 12 or so seconds. I remember Monty explained to me once, and I don't remember exactly what I remember, everything on the map would just kind of reset. It would just have to remind itself, everything is here. These items have been moved, they're here now, yada, yada, yada. And that's fine, unless you've also put physics into all of your vehicles so that whenever they detect motion, the shocks and everything make it move. So you just be in a scene, and then suddenly Shield of the Tank just gets hiccups, and cool, great. I think we wrote something like that one time, because it started happening to the characters in Reach as well, but they would do a weird twitch, and I think it started happening so much we wrote it in a line that was are you okay? I'm fine. It's maybe a PSA or something.
Well, it was the equivalent, it was a 12-second loop, essentially, but then there was that bump when it would loop back around to the beginning of it just sitting there. And it's kind of the equivalent of when you're watching an animated GIF on your phone, and you want to show it to somebody, and you're watch it now. A skill that we've all developed of when do we turn the phone around to show somebody a GIF to catch them right at the beginning of it. And that was literally every shot we did in those engines. When there was a vehicle nearby, we had to do it that way, which is a lot.
Yeah, 3, I got to do a little bit in 3. 3 was always nice.
3 to me it was very high fidelity. It was high definition, which the show was not always high definition. It was crazy years and going. It was high definition, but it was also, Matt really always loved the aesthetic of Halo 1. When we moved to Halo 2, it was way like starker, and the characters even stood like one shoulder forward. Like everything we shot with the characters was like this, because it was way more intense. And then Halo 3 got back to high fidelity, but then also that fun, really saturated color palette, really fun designs. Like that's when Caboose went back to the Mark V armor. So Halo 3 was still my favorite, I think.
Austin, Josh,
Just got a nod from Matt. So yeah.
Damn, all awards go to Halo 3. All right. Do we have another audience question? If not, I have more up here from our internal teams.
Busy yammering. Hold on one second. Hold on the list now. Oh, this is a really funny one. I forgot who asked it, but they want to know, what do we think Caboose's starting Pokemon would be?
All right. Oh, missing no? I think Caboose, due to a misunderstanding of what the Pokemon actually looks like, would choose a Miltank.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. The misunderstanding. I'm gonna say Yoshi.
I guess it'd be Mr. Mime, so he could play charades all day.
Oh, that'd be really cute. He'd be bad at it.
But to bring up Pokemon, I think it's in a really interesting place, which RVB, as crazy as it's been for going for 16 years, it's always been in this era when video game movies are about to break out. Like, it always seems like there's gonna be on the horizon a major, like, summer blockbuster video game movie. And I would argue that maybe now we have that, because Detective Pikachu was a video game movie. It was really well received, arguably better than the Sonic trailer was received. But it's like we now have something we can point to. Like up until now, we've had stuff like Tomb Raider, we've had Resident Evil, that franchise, but they've always been kind of like inspired by, like Assassin's Creed, inspired by the games, but not necessarily like not in the same tone. And I feel like Detective Pikachu kind of crossed that line for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still die on the hill and say that Mortal Kombat is the best video game movie ever made, but that maybe it's the perfect amount of campiness, you guys. We don't talk about Super Mario Brothers, and you goddamn know it. It was cool. Super Mario Brothers is still like a fun movie, but like, again, it's like, there's a lot of, to say that it was inspired by Super Mario Brothers is already very generous. But like, Mortal Kombat's always been like hyper-violent and campy, and that was a Mortal Kombat movie for me. Why the fuck are we talking about Mortal Kombat? Let's talk about more about season 17. So, I know there was a point in time where we were actually looking into, could we go back and reuse footage from old seasons to try and like lighten the load? Did that ever pan out? No.
There were a few times where we were able to use old footage for like, if it was a montage or something, like, oh, we have to like scrub through the entirety of the show. Like, yeah, we weren't reshooting all of that. But pretty much everything had to be reshot, re-recorded. It was all the original voice actors. We called them up. Hey, anybody have this email from like 6 years ago?
What up, Delta?
But yeah, we had to go back and reshoot everything, which was fun.
It was also a good idea to reshoot all of our stuff because our capture was like so high fidelity that if we use like, okay, here's some old Halo 3 footage and let's stitch it together with some new Halo 3 footage, the old looked like somebody rubbed Vaseline all over the lens. Really starkly different.
There were bits too where it was like, okay, how do we shoot in Halo 2 again? And stuff was like, okay, well, let's abuse this glitch and get it to work. It's like, okay, thank you, programmer who didn't fix this a decade ago.
It was interesting too, like one thing that has been really cool about RVB is that as the show continues to go on, characters change, develop, talking about Donut, talking about Tucker. Every character, I think, in the show has had at least some amount of change or some amount of evolution. So what was it like having to go back and essentially shoot and record like older versions of characters, like both as like a writer, even as like voice actors, like early Sarge and early Church, who were like, they've changed a lot.
Caboose!
Is practically a different person.
I felt really weird about filming Caboose in the early seasons because the voice was just not the same whatsoever, you know. So when you're going back to that time, I was like, so how are we going to do that? We're going to be halfway between. I think it got worked out in the end, didn't it? Like, what was your thoughts as the directors about filming early Caboose? Like,
I'm sorry, what was that? I was reading the question. I'm sorry, what'd you ask?
No, I was asking the directors here. I was just saying, like, because you know, if you're featuring Caboose in the older seasons, his voice is different, right?
Yeah. So at the end of last season, because Sarge was also the same sort of thing, where like his voice was completely different at the beginning. And so
I'm gonna pass the question over to Matt.
So here's the game I was going to play at this panel. I'm changing the subject completely all of a sudden.
go for it.
So usually when we start getting questions, one of the first ones that I get is, what's your favorite Sarge quote? And can you say it? Or can you say this like Sarge? And I always my mind goes blank in these situations and I can't think of any quotes at all. I'm like, blue bag or something.
That's my favorite.
That's a good quote. So this time I actually wrote down a bunch of Sarge quotes. So the game I thought would be fun to play is just whenever you want to ask me a question about anything that we're talking about and want my input, I will respond with a random Sarge quote.
Very happy.
So what was your question again?
Why can't you do the same voice year after year? I think that was the question.
I love Angelina Jolie! Does anyone else like Angelina Jolie? She's got enormous lips!
Illuminating.
So wise, so insightful.
Calling Dr. Sarge, MD. Diagnosis death. Prescription shotgun.
Jesus Christ. I know that, oh no, we'll get there. There's a rule of threes thing that's gonna happen later and it's gonna be great. Working with old versions of characters was something that it was something that we were talking about early on in developing the story, and then something I kind of got obsessed with, and then very much inspired the idea of the Wash-centric episode of going back and meeting the freelancers and realizing everybody, this is goddamn high school. What is going on here? Why are there popular kids and mean kids? But just this idea of confronting the you that you were some time ago, or the people that you know now and how they were different then, and realizing that everybody changes and stuff, and that was big props to Shannon and Jen on that episode. That was so much fun. That was also Wash and Carolina. I feel like there was a lot of evolution in their relationship this season as well. That Joe started working on, and then was tied with a nice bow this season.
Oh, absolutely. Well, nothing brings people together like trauma.
It's true. I mean, it's true.
The evolution of their relationship and the kind of will they won't they kind of thing, but also there's such for a show about war, people are so rarely injured. They just die usually, or they'll die temporarily and come back like Donut.
And Church, and Lopez.
Lopez had so many lines. I never thought it was the biggest joke ever on me. I wrote this stupid joke of a robot that's stuck in the Spanish setting, and I've been doing these lines now for 16 years.
You played yourself.
And somehow I've learned no Spanish at all in that process. I will say that going back, Miles, I think you deal with this too, is now, whenever we go back to early versions of Church, and there's a thing where early Church pops in, early Church was very shouty and very screechy in particular. It was kind of a way to make the character who's this, thinks he's everything on his team and the leader of his team, so that when he gets frustrated, his voice breaks and he gets very high-pitched screaming. But my voice goes out really quickly now after playing that character for a while. And we would say in the booth, it'd be we got about 5 takes of this and then I'm done for the day, because my voice will literally just fall off. I won't be able to hit that register. You deal with that too, don't you, Miles?
Yeah, no, David for Camp Camp is the most exhausting character to perform for because most of the time he's here and then the rest of the time he's fucking there. And I can't do David for more than like 2 hours in a day. I'm just like, I'm done. I'm like pouring sweat in the booth. It's just like, I can't, this dude's too fucking happy, man. It's hard though, you know, it's like, and actually to go back to like, oh, why is that voice different? Like Jean in Ruby in season 1 sounds super different than he does now, partly intentional because we wanted him to like toughen up and be less of a wet noodle, but also because I irreparably damaged my vocal cords the first time I went to MCM London. There's an RTAA about it. You don't have to watch it. Things happen. But I got so sick I permanently damaged my vocal cords and I just can't do that voice exactly anymore. It's freaky. It's crazy, and it's literally these characters getting older.
It's like a performance-related injury. You need like a sports physician.
Oh, that's like, just rub my neck, dude. Thanks, I feel ready to get it. My pipes are super ready, dude.
Yeah.
So I never saw these, and I wanted to bring them up here because I heard about them. I heard you motherfuckers put some Easter eggs in this season. What is that look? Is it true? Did you guys actually do it?
What?
Put Easter eggs in the episodes.
Oh yeah.
I heard there's like little like shout out and like thrown in things.
There's certain shots of the black hole where you can be certain other that's a sentence. We kind of realized that black hole, like the beginning of time, is it's a time, not a place, right? So if everything is going to the beginning of time, everything should be there. So there's some secret stuff kind of, you know, in the background. I don't know.
We were like in the room and it was like, okay, cool, this shot looks good, we can finally pass it. We've been working on it for a while. Wait a minute. Like in the room we realized during our review, like, wait, if everything's there, then everything's there.
So what did you put there? Am I allowed to know, or do I have to go look up the episode?
So what the things that fly into the black hole include people.
Okay.
AI.
Oh.
A golf ball from a previous season.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that's from. That's
Jesus. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Season 16, right? Or, no, season 16. Okay.
the first time we meet Jenkins, he's playing golf into a black hole.
You motherfuckers. You think you're so fucking clever. You are. Good job. This is a weird compliment.
We were worried, we were like, oh, is anybody gonna get this? And then we saw like right away people were like catching it, like, oh.
Dude, you can't, like, it's so hard to, like, do a long play. Like, how do you feel about that, Matt?
Hey, dude! I like them apples. And by apples, I mean bullets in your face. I like them pears. Guess what I mean by pears? These nuts.
Thank you very much. This is also what the CEO panel is just going to be like, for those of you thinking of attending.
All of you Sarge quotes.
Actually, now that we're talking about like businessy stuff, I just said the word CEO and tried to make it a segue. Do we have like a cool slideshow thingy?
We have a couple slides about some upcoming merch.
Yeah, that's right. The RBB panel actually has cool slides and shit for once. You want to talk about this a little bit, guys? Well, what are we looking at up here?
So we're looking at some of the stuff coming up for the Griff collection and one of our other collections. And on the next slide,
Oh, they're gonna make you wait for
anticipation.
Exercise!
There, and that's the sequel to the Rivals collection.
That's
All of it coming soon, TM.
coming soon. While all of our attention is up on the screen, we also had something else to share with you. Because it's been a hot minute, I feel like, since we've had a real good one of these. We have a video. We have a blooper video. So let's go ahead and throw that up. I haven't seen this, and I'm afraid, but let's do this. Our season 17 blooper reel. That was amazing. The hello montage. I need to make that my alarm in the morning. Hello, 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 hello. That was awesome, dude.
How to break your phone in 2 easy steps.
So we have about 10 minutes left. I don't know if there's any other like high-level stuff we need to cover. Maybe we can just do 10 more minutes of like audience questions.
Yeah,
Hashtag. Pull it up on my end too.
in here. Question for the Machinimation team. With Master Chief Collection moving to PC, any plans to go back and work on any previous versions of Halo that will make their way to PC? I assume probably Reach would be first out of the gate. Isn't that what they said? Reach would be the first one?
Yes, I believe so.
Any plans for that? Oh, sorry. What's your name? Christian.
Oh, guys, Mars Argentina. Hell yeah, dude.
It's not my country. I can't really say welcome.
You're not allowed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, hopefully when it gets to PC, it'll be, hopefully like mod support, hopefully will be a thing, so we can kind of mix and match some different Halo games together or something, maybe make something cool.
Yeah, the theater mode, which is this really incredible addition that Bungie and 343 added to consoles. I mean, I can't recall a game that had a theater mode besides maybe some sports games for like instant replay. But it really like took away the need that we had to go to PC for some things, because the free camera was a big part of it. As well as the higher resolution, but it's like having the theater mode for all the different versions of the game is a huge, huge benefit for us. I don't know your exact process by which you do it, but it does essentially double the workload where you have to, for the Halo 1 days, we used to be able to shoot it while we acted it out, as opposed to acting it out and then dropping out the theater mode and doing it that way. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what features we can get in Halo Reach. You looking forward to it, Josh? That's a heavy nod there.
When that announcement came out, just everybody kept coming and asking like, "Oh, so are you guys switching over to that?" And it's like we're in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
We're not changing engines right now.
Yeah, it is. Once the Halo franchise makes a big announcement, it does become a very dominant question that we could ask: are you guys going to do this? Or are you going to do? It's like eventually, yeah, sure, we'll take a look at it, but we don't know because, like Miles was saying. A big thing, especially with the machinima aspect of the show, is there's little quirks to the engine in every version of the game that make it either really possible to do machinima in it, or make it one small thing that can make it extraordinarily difficult to do machinima in. That's why you can't do it really in every single video game that's out there. But there's some good candidates, and Halo has obviously been a great one over the years.
Man. What's your opinion on can console and PC use be stitched together seamlessly, or is there a clear dichotomy between these two concepts? Is it night and day, or I just want to hear some schools of thought.
I love blood and violence. I've got a boner for murder.
Thank you. That actually, yeah. All right, cool. Next season's gonna be so good now.
Hey, does Sarge know any caboose lines?
Quiet, retard.
Here's a question from Kay. I don't know if you're here. If you had to do a crossover between RVB and any other RT show, what would you pick?
Yeah, that's what I saw there too. We did see Camp in this, and that was fun to see.
Military camp, huh? Oh boy. Space Kid would love them. He'd be like, look, I'm dressed just like you.
Space Kid and Caboose would be friends.
Yeah, I think the camp crossover, just because like they're both comedic, would be a lot of fun.
On the spot.
Oh shit, yeah. Oh wait, actually I want to change my answer to day 5. I want to see those motherfuckers do their best. I mean, Griff's out in 30 seconds, right? Like we can all agree. Griff's like, peace, naps himself to death.
Absolutely. Yeah, Griff staying awake for 30 minutes would be amazing.
How about if Griff was a contestant on Chip Show? I don't know if you can call it a contestant really. He's just eating chips.
Shout out to Christina Parrish from the Chip Show. You might see her on RTX. What about you guys?
I was gonna say Camp.
Camp?
Same, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, there's Supreme Surrender. That's a deep cut, my dude. Hell yeah.
It's downright easy to do.
All right, no more audience responses.
Open naming shows at this point. In the Laser Team universe, there's an animated show called Boot Group. And I would love to see the RVB guys make a cameo appearance on Colton's show Boot Crew. There was a question though, which I'd be curious to ask you guys about. A couple people have asked, will there ever be an RVB movie? Which is an interesting thing to talk about, being 16 years in at this point. Would you all be interested in an RVB movie? Matt, any response to that, Matt? That was oddly specific, dude.
How about a tasty lead sandwich with a side of orange? Hold the life and the meal.
Let's see. I lost the person who asked this question, but to everyone up here on the panel, what was your favorite running gag in season 17, and why was it shooting donut?
Donut. Shooting donut, yeah.
Watching him back in like his particular way was because Mally was a fan favorite character, and I thought it'd be great to like bring him back in a way that meant that we could then say goodbye to him.
Sure.
And that was also just like throwing Sister back in, was just like, hell yeah, she's alive, she's out there, she's doing her thing, and it was just kind of like, that's all it really was just to have her included as this big send-off to a bunch of characters that I really loved. But then what that did was like, when Joe started working with the series, and then you started working with the series, like, oh shit, yeah, Sister's still here. And Sister fucking rules.
Yeah.
You immediately fell in love with Sister's character.
I love Sister's character. She's just so filthy. And it's like, and like Tucker has grown a little, so you can't always give him those jokes anymore, I was really excited to bring back Felix this season, and he did that. It was like, beloved character to give a send-off to, a dirty rat.
He's a real bastard. No, it is fun too, seeing like, it was highlighted a little more in season 16 as well, of like, yeah, both Tucker and Sister are kind of pervy, but in very different ways. Where like Tucker uses his like seemingly like perverted kinky side as definitely a way of coping with his tremendous amount of insecurities, whereas Sister's like completely owning it and is just like, I know exactly who I am and like my lifestyle, and you can get on board, you can get out of my way.
Yeah.
And like this moment of like, oh, these two characters are really similar. It's actually, no, actually they were like worlds apart, and it was really fun getting to explore that over the course of this trilogy.
Sure.
Let's see if we got like just a few more minutes here.
Someone asked, they're new to RVB, can you just recap it really quickly for me? Anybody? Here we go. And that was Evan Scott that asked that question.
A priest, a rabbi, and Griff all walk into a bar. And I kill them.
That's it, right?
This is a question from ShamWow.
Bob, this is probably the last question, you think?
Last question, I think. Would you consider making RVB or another machinimated series in another game that isn't Halo?
Or making RVB
or another machinima series. Essentially, are we looking at doing machinima in any other games right now or in the future? We've definitely done in the past. What was it? Supreme Surrender got thrown out there. I remember I loved Panics. I know Panics had a really strong run, but I fucking love Panics.
So Panics was one, and it's probably okay to talk about this now, but there was like a split up with that company, and it was a weird thing where, these are licensed products at the end of the day. We might be the only people in the world that license video game footage for the internet. But Panics, the story and characters went one way, and the title went the other way, but they never really determined where that show Panics lied. So we kind of just lost the show in a legal split up for the game that the whole thing was based in. But those characters were a ton of fun, It's one of the reasons I love Achievement Haunter, or now just Haunter, is like idiots hunting ghosts. I'm on board for that. See that? Yeah, but Panics was a great one. RVB would, I don't think, ever leave the Halo universe. Yeah, it's so ingrained with Halo and everything else.
Austin, Josh, if you could do any like video game machinima that wasn't Halo, what do you think you'd do?
I love Doom.
You love Doom.
I love Davis. I love Doom.
Because we've toyed around with a few ideas, because it's always fun to like I think machinima is really fascinating because of how quickly you can churn stuff out, and so we're always open. It can't just be like, hey, we're gonna go make a machinima in this because. It's like there has to be a reason for us to make it. Like you guys loved Halo and saw that there was a lot of cool stuff to play around with that. It's like, if it's a game, like I'd probably love to do something in Apex Legends, but all those characters are already characters and most of them have mouths that have to talk, so like that'd be hard, but I don't know. So Doom, Austin?
I'm a big Call of Duty fan. I really want to do something in ACOD. There's enough of them out there. One of them's got to be good to shoot you.
Hey, big video game companies, if you want machinima, add us. We'll talk. We're about out of time, but before we go, we just wanted to say one last thank you. If you worked on Red vs. Blue and are in the audience right now, could you please stand up and take a bow because you guys did amazing work this season. Give them a round of applause. Guys, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for supporting the show over all these years, and please stay hydrated, have fun, be safe, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, everybody.